"Sir, my mother didn't come home last night." The little black boy, only 7 years old, shivered in the snow as he held the hand of the richest man in town. Marcus Coleman, CEO of Coleman Industries, had found the boy crying outside the gates of his mansion during a storm that had paralyzed the city. "What's your name, kid?" Marcus asked, covering the child with his Italian wool coat as they walked toward the car. "Isaiah, sir. Isaiah Washington." The small voice struggled against the biting wind. "My mom works at your factory. She always comes home before breakfast, always." Marcus felt something cold in his stomach that had nothing to do with the weather. Coleman Industries had 17 factories in the region, but only 3 operated night shifts. What if an employee had disappeared without him knowing? "What's your mother's name?" "Diana Washington. Everyone calls her Dee." The name wasn't familiar, but Marcus knew he knew less than 5% of his 15,000 employees. During the 20-minute drive to the chemical processing plant in the industrial district, Isaiah told him how his mother always arrived at 6 in the morning, how she made pancakes on Sundays, and how she had promised never to leave him alone. The factory was operating normally when they arrived. Lights on, constant movement, the acrid smell of chemicals mixed with the steam from melting snow. Marcus didn't usually make unscheduled visits, especially not during the early morning shift. "Mr. Coleman." The night supervisor, a short, nervous man named Peterson, almost tripped when he saw them. "We weren't expecting. Is there a problem?" "I'm looking for an employee. Diana Washington. Where is she?" Peterson blinked rapidly, looked at Isaiah, then back at Marcus. "Well, sir, there was an incident last night." "What kind of incident?" "She was caught stealing supplies from the warehouse. Expensive chemicals. We called security, she resisted arrest, and, well, force was necessary to restrain her. She's being held in the security room." Marcus looked at Isaiah, who had begun to cry silently. Something didn't add up. A single mother stealing industrial chemicals? Products that had no resale value to the average person? "I want to see the security footage. Now." Peterson hesitated. "Sir, it's internal protocol. HR is already handling the situation." At that moment, Marcus noticed something in Peterson's eyes. It wasn't professional nervousness. It was fear. Fear that something would be discovered. "Peterson," Marcus said in a dangerously low voice, "are you denying me access to my own company's recordings?" While waiting for access to the security system, Marcus noticed how the other employees avoided looking directly at Isaiah. How the supervisors whispered among themselves when they thought he wasn't looking. How everyone seemed to have a well-rehearsed version of the facts about Diana Washington. But what caught his attention most was the gleam in Isaiah's eyes, not from fear or confusion, but from a quiet determination that seemed strange in someone so young. As if he knew something that adults couldn't imagine a child could understand. What none of them knew was that that night in the snow would be just the beginning of an investigation that would reveal systematic racial corruption schemes within Coleman Industries, schemes that would destroy careers, bring down fortunes, and prove that sometimes justice comes through the innocent eyes of those we least expect. If this story of corruption and prejudice has piqued your curiosity, be sure to subscribe to the channel to find out how a CEO would discover that his own company was hiding secrets that would tarnish his reputation forever. The security room smelled of mold and cheap disinfectant. Diana Washington sat in a plastic chair, handcuffs on her wrists, her eyes swollen from crying. But when she saw Isaiah running toward her, something changed in her gaze, a mixture of relief and terror. "Isaiah, my love," she whispered, kissing her son's forehead as the handcuffs jingled. "What are you doing here?" Marcus watched the scene in silence. Something was deeply wrong here. A woman accused of stealing industrial chemicals did not display the defensiveness or nervousness typical of someone caught red-handed. Diana seemed resigned, as if she had been expecting this. "Mr. Peterson," Marcus said, his voice cutting through the cold air in the room, "I want to see the recordings. Now." Peterson shifted uncomfortably among the papers. "Sir, as I said, it's protocol. Perhaps it would be best to let the legal department." "Peterson." Marcus turned fully toward him, and something in his tone made the man take half a step back. "You have 10 seconds to take me to those recordings, or you'll have to explain to the board why you're preventing the CEO from accessing his own company's information." 5 minutes later, in the monitoring room, Marcus watched the recordings from the previous night. What he saw made his stomach churn. Diana was alone in the warehouse, organizing supplies, clearly part of her normal duties. Then Peterson appeared, accompanied by 2 guards. They talked briefly, and Diana shook her head vigorously, pointing to a clipboard. Peterson snatched the clipboard from her hands and signaled to the guards. "Where's the audio?" Marcus asked. "The audio system was having problems in that area," Peterson replied quickly. "Very convenient." Marcus continued watching. Diana was trying to explain something, gesturing toward the boxes around her. Peterson pointed to a specific one that Diana clearly hadn't touched. The guards pushed her against the wall and began searching her belongings. "Interesting," Marcus muttered. "She was working normally and was approached by you. Not the other way around." Peterson was sweating cold now. "Sir, there are details that aren't clear in the recordings." "What details?" "Well, there were previous complaints about Diana. Petty theft, insubordination." "Complaints from whom?" "Several supervisors. It's all documented." Marcus picked up his phone and called HR. "I need Diana Washington's complete file in 5 minutes. Everything. Evaluations, warnings, complaints." He hung up and stared at Peterson. "Let's see what documentation you have." While they waited, Marcus noticed Isaiah watching everything in absolute silence. For a 7-year-old, he showed a disturbing maturity. As if he had seen adults lying before. The file arrived by email. Marcus read aloud, "Diana Washington. 7 years with the company. Consistently above average evaluations. Perfect punctuality. No formal warnings until," he paused, checking the date. "Until 3 months ago." Peterson cleared his throat. "As I said, recent problems. 3 warnings in 3 months, all for insubordination and inappropriate attitude." Marcus looked directly at Peterson. "All signed by you. Curious how a model employee for 7 years suddenly became problematic, just when you were promoted to night supervisor." Marcus's phone vibrated. A message from his assistant, "Mr. Coleman, I checked as requested. Peterson was hired 4 months ago. He came recommended by the board, specifically by Mr. Hartwell. Richard Hartwell. Board member, known for his subtle comments about maintaining standards in the company." Marcus was beginning to understand the bigger picture. "Peterson, I want you to explain something to me." Marcus showed him the screen of his cell phone. "How does an employee who has never had any problems in 7 years suddenly need to be investigated for theft under your supervision?" Peterson opened and closed his mouth like a fish out of water. "Sir, perhaps we should discuss this in private." "Actually," said a soft voice behind them, "I think Isaiah has something to say about that." Everyone turned around. Isaiah had approached silently, holding a small toy recorder, one of those that children use to play journalist. "My mom gave me this to record stories," Isaiah said, his voice steady despite his 7 years. "But last night, when she didn't come back, I came back here looking for her. And I recorded what Mr. Peterson said on the phone." Peterson turned completely pale. Isaiah pressed play. Peterson's voice echoed through the room, "Yes, sir, it's done. The troublesome black woman has been neutralized. As you said, sometimes you have to take preventive measures before they start giving ideas to the others." The silence that followed was deafening. Marcus looked at Peterson, who was trying to find words to explain himself. He looked at Diana, who had closed her eyes as if she could finally breathe. And he looked at Isaiah, who held the tape recorder with the seriousness of someone who perfectly understands the power of evidence. "Mr. Peterson," Marcus said, his voice dangerously calm, "I think we have a lot to talk about. But first, Isaiah, could you tell me what else you know about these preventative measures?" The smile that crossed the boy's face was anything but innocent. It was that of someone who had spent months gathering evidence, waiting for the right moment. What none of them knew was that child's tape recorder contained much more than a conversation. Isaiah had documented weeks of secret meetings, specific names of board members, and a systematic plan to eliminate black employees who threatened the company culture. Sometimes justice comes through the most innocent eyes, and the sharpest minds. But what Peterson and his superiors didn't yet know was that underestimating a 7-year-old would be the least of the mistakes they would make on that cold night. Over the next 3 weeks, Marcus Coleman would discover that Coleman Industries had become something he never could have imagined, a laboratory of systematic discrimination disguised as a respectable corporation. Isaiah's recording was just the tip of the iceberg. Marcus discreetly hired Victoria Chun, a private investigator specializing in corporate crimes, and what she uncovered made his stomach churn. "Mr. Coleman," Victoria said during a secret meeting at a downtown coffee shop, "this goes far beyond Peterson. There are at least 12 black employees who have been fired in the last 2 years on trumped-up charges. All of them worked in leadership positions or were on the verge of being promoted." Marcus leafed through the files she had compiled. Names, dates, methods. A pattern as clear as it was disturbing. "And there's more," Victoria continued, lowering her voice. "The orders come directly from the board. Richard Hartwell coordinates monthly meetings they call cultural quality control. I have recordings." Meanwhile, Peterson had been promoted to regional manager, an obvious reward for his good work. Diana remained suspended without pay, facing an internal investigation that was being deliberately dragged out. The family was surviving on the meager savings she had managed to put aside. Marcus visited Isaiah and Diana regularly, always bringing groceries and pretending they were just company wellness checks. But each visit made him angrier. Isaiah was back to being just a child, but his eyes revealed a maturity that no child should have. "Mr. Marcus," Isaiah said one afternoon, playing with some toy cars on the floor of the small living room, "my mom is very sad. She doesn't sleep well." Marcus looked at Diana, who was trying to smile as she prepared tea with bags that had clearly been used several times before. "Isaiah told me that you come to visit us because you care," she said. "But I don't want you to hurt yourself because of us. People like us, we're used to it." That sentence hit Marcus like a punch in the stomach. People like you shouldn't have to get used to injustice. That night, Marcus called Victoria. "I want everything. Every email, every phone call, every document that proves this scheme. And I want the names of all the employees who were harmed." "Mr. Coleman, that's going to cost a lot of money and time." "Money is not a problem. Time is running out." What Marcus didn't know was that Hartwell and the other board members already suspected his excessive interest in the Diana Washington case. During an executive meeting, Hartwell made a point of bringing up the subject. "Marcus, we understand your concern with HR policies," Hartwell said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes, "but perhaps it would be best to leave these operational issues to the experts. You have more important concerns, don't you?" "Of course, Richard. Just making sure we follow all protocols." "Excellent. Because it would be a shame if our shareholders started questioning misguided leadership priorities." Marcus understood the threat perfectly. Hartwell controlled 30% of the company's shares through an investment fund. He was powerful enough to cause serious problems. But what Hartwell didn't know was that Marcus had begun to move his own pieces on the board. First move, Marcus discreetly contacted Rachel Thompson, an investigative reporter for the Washington Tribune known for exposing corporate scandals. He didn't reveal any details, just mentioned that there might be an interesting story about labor practices at Coleman Industries. Second move, he began documenting all his interactions with the board, recording meetings when possible and keeping meticulous records of every suspicious conversation. Third move, through Victoria, he began to locate employees who had been fired under questionable circumstances. Many were unemployed. Some had moved out of town, others were working in jobs far below their qualifications. But the most important move came from an unexpected source, Isaiah. The boy had continued visiting the factory, hiding nearby to listen to conversations. His childish spy games revealed information that even Victoria had been unable to obtain. "Mr. Marcus," Isaiah said during one of his visits, "Mr. Peterson has spoken to other supervisors. They have a list." Marcus knelt down to the boy's level. "What kind of list, Isaiah?" Isaiah pulled a crumpled piece of paper from his pocket, a copy of a page he had found in the trash in Peterson's office. It was a list of names, all of black employees, with notes next to them: promote out, create disciplinary issues, find reason to fire. Diana's name was at the top, marked resolved. But there was something more disturbing. At the bottom of the list was written next target, executive leadership. And there was a name that made Marcus's heart stop: Kevin Washington, Director of Operations. Kevin Washington, one of the most competent executives in the company, who had been tapped for a promotion to vice president. And who, Marcus realized with growing horror, was Diana's older brother. Marcus immediately understood the magnitude of what he was facing. This wasn't just about harming low-level employees. Hartwell and his accomplices were systematically eliminating any possibility of black leadership at all levels of the company. And Kevin had no idea what was about to happen. Marcus looked at Isaiah, who was holding the paper with the seriousness of someone who fully understood the importance of what he had found, and made a decision. "Isaiah," he said, "you would make the best private investigator I've ever known. Will you help me save not only your mother, but many other people?" The smile that crossed the boy's face was not childish. It was that of someone who was ready for war. What Hartwell, Peterson, and the entire board did not yet know was that they had made the fatal mistake of underestimating not only a 7-year-old child, but a CEO who was about to use all the resources of a corporate empire to destroy the corruption within the company itself. The real battle was just beginning, and Marcus Coleman was about to prove that sometimes the best way to clean house is to burn everything that is rotten inside, even if it meant rebuilding from scratch. The Coleman Industries annual shareholders meeting always took place on the first Monday in December. 500 people, including investors, trade media, and senior staff, gathered in the elegant auditorium of the Metropolitan Hotel. Marcus Coleman took the podium at exactly 10 a.m., as he had done for the past 15 years. But this time, something was different. In the right corner of the auditorium, Rachel Thompson of the Washington Tribune was present with a full film crew. In the front row, Diana and Isaiah Washington occupied seats that were normally reserved for senior executives. "Ladies and gentlemen," Marcus began, his voice echoing through the sound system, "today you will witness something I never imagined I would have to do, the full exposure of a racial cancer that has grown within my own company." A murmur of confusion rippled through the auditorium. Richard Hartwell, seated at the board table, frowned and whispered something to Peterson, who had been called upon to present the operating results. Marcus continued, his voice gaining strength. "3 weeks ago, a 7-year-old boy knocked on my front door during a snowstorm. He was looking for his mother, who had been falsely accused of theft by corrupt supervisors at our company." The giant screen behind Marcus lit up, showing a photo of Isaiah holding Marcus's hand in the snow. "This is Isaiah Washington. And this," Marcus said as the image changed to show Diana in handcuffs, "is Diana Washington, an exemplary employee for 7 years, who was the victim of a systematic scheme of racial discrimination that infected our organization like a disease." Peterson tried to stand up. "Mr. Coleman, perhaps we should discuss this in private." "Sit down," Marcus said with an authority that made Peterson instantly back down. "You'll have your chance to explain yourself. To everyone." Marcus signaled, and Victoria Chun approached the podium with a bulky folder. "Over the past 21 days, we have investigated every dismissal, every transfer, every reorganization of the past 2 years. The results are devastating." The screen now displayed a spreadsheet with dozens of names. 43 black employees were systematically eliminated from the company between January 2022 and November 2024. All through fabricated accusations, manipulated evaluations, or restructurings that specifically targeted employees of color. Hartwell finally stood up, his face red with anger. "Marcus, this is an extremely serious and unfounded accusation. I demand that you stop this charade immediately." "Charade?" Marcus smiled coldly. "Richard, you're right. Let's get to the facts." Isaiah stood up from the front row, holding his small tape recorder. With the help of a wireless microphone, his childish voice echoed through the auditorium. "This is Mr. Peterson speaking on the phone 3 weeks ago." Peterson's voice came out clear over the speakers. "Yes, sir, it's done. The troublesome black woman has been neutralized. As you said, sometimes you have to take preventive measures before they start giving ideas to the others." The auditorium erupted in shocked murmurs. Peterson turned completely pale, looking desperately at Hartwell. "But there's more," Marcus continued. "Victoria distributed packets of documents to the journalists in attendance. We have recordings of meetings that Mr. Hartwell called cultural quality control. Meetings where specific strategies were discussed to prevent the rise of black employees." Hartwell's voice came out of the speakers, clear and unmistakable. "We need to be more subtle. We can't just fire everyone at once. But we can create situations where they feel uncomfortable enough to resign. This is a setup." Hartwell shouted, but his voice was shaking. "Is it?" Marcus made another sign. Kevin Washington, could you join us? Kevin Washington, director of operations and Diana's brother, took the stage. In his hands, he carried a sealed envelope. Kevin found this on his desk this morning, Marcus said. The plan for his own elimination. Kevin opened the envelope and read aloud, "Confidential memo. Kevin Washington poses a threat to the cultural stability of executive leadership. I recommend investigation for alleged financial misconduct. Evidence will be planted as necessary." The document was stamped with the official HR seal and signed by Peterson and Hartwell. The auditorium was now in complete uproar. Investors whispered furiously among themselves. Journalists typed frantically on their laptops. "Gentlemen," Marcus said, his voice cutting through the chaos, "these are the people you trusted to run departments of this company. People who saw black employees not as human beings or competent professionals, but as problems to be solved." Hartwell tried one last gambit. "Marcus, you're destroying this company over a few operational misunderstandings. The shareholders won't tolerate." "The shareholders?" Marcus laughed bitterly. "Richard, you think the shareholders will tolerate finding out that our company is about to face 43 lawsuits for racial discrimination? Lawsuits we have zero chance of winning because you and Peterson left a trail of evidence a high school student could follow." Marcus turned to the auditorium. "Effective immediately, Richard Hartwell and all board members involved in this scheme are fired. Peterson and all complicit supervisors are fired. And all employees harmed by this scheme will be reinstated with full compensation." "You can't do that," Hartwell shouted. "I control 30% of the stock in this company." "Controlled," Marcus corrected. "Because our investigation has uncovered that your investment fund used insider information to manipulate the company's stock on at least 6 separate occasions. That's a federal crime, Richard." 2 FBI agents, who had been discreetly positioned near the exits, began to approach Hartwell and Peterson. "Agent Sarah Mitchell, FBI," the woman said, identifying herself. "Richard Hartwell, Peterson Martinez, you are under arrest for conspiracy, systematic racial discrimination, and illegal market manipulation." Peterson tried to run, but was quickly intercepted. Hartwell, in complete despair, shouted, "This is persecution. I'm going to destroy you all. You don't know who you're messing with." "Actually," Marcus said calmly, "we know exactly who we're messing with. We're messing with criminals who have hidden behind expensive suits and fake pedigrees to harm innocent people." As Hartwell and Peterson were led away in handcuffs, Marcus turned to Diana and Isaiah in the front row. "Ms. Washington, would you like to join us up here?" Diana climbed onto the stage, still incredulous at what she was witnessing. Marcus embraced her publicly before turning to the microphone one last time. "Diana Washington is our new Director of Human Resources," he announced. "Who better to ensure this never happens again than someone who has suffered firsthand the consequences of our negligence?" The auditorium erupted in applause. Diana, tears in her eyes, hugged Isaiah, who whispered, "We did it, Mom. We did it." Marcus looked at the faces in the audience, journalists recording every word, investors re-evaluating their positions, employees finally seeing justice being served. "3 weeks ago," he said, his voice now soft but firm, "a little boy knocked on my gate looking for justice. Today, I hope you have seen that sometimes justice comes through the most unlikely places, and the purest voices." As the applause continued and the cameras captured every moment, one thing became clear to everyone in the auditorium. Marcus Coleman had not only cleaned up his company. He had completely redefined what it meant to lead with integrity. But what happened in the days that followed would prove that destroying an empire of prejudice is only the beginning. Building something better in its place is where true transformation really happens. 6 months later, Coleman Industries was unrecognizable. Diana Washington, now Director of Human Resources, had implemented policies that became a national model for corporate diversity. Isaiah, now 8 years old, attended a private school on a full scholarship, not as charity, but in recognition of the role he played in transforming the company. Richard Hartwell was serving a 5-year sentence for racial discrimination and market manipulation. Peterson got 3 years and was ordered to pay damages that left him bankrupt. Both lost everything: reputation, fortune, family. "Mr. Marcus," Isaiah said during lunch at the office, "why are some people bad?" Marcus stopped eating and looked at the boy who had changed his life. "I don't think they're born bad," Isaiah. I think they choose to be bad when they decide that some people are worth less than others. Diana smiled, watching the relationship that had developed between them. Marcus had become more than a boss, he was family. And Isaiah had become more than inspiration, he was hope. The company posted record profits that year. Not coincidentally, valued employees work better. The 43 former employees were reinstated, many in leadership positions. Kevin Washington became vice president. You know what's funny? Marcus said to Diana one afternoon. Hartwell thought he was protecting the company's standards. He ended up discovering that the real standards are decency and competence. On television, Rachel Thompson presented a special series on corporate racism, using Coleman Industries as an example of real transformation. Sometimes, she said, change happens when we least expect it, through a brave child and an adult willing to listen. Isaiah, now an electronics expert at age 8, had created a simple app for anonymous reporting of discrimination. Companies across the country wanted to implement it. Mom, he said one night, I think I've found my profession. What is it? Justice detective. Diana laughed, but Marcus nodded seriously. The world needs more detectives like you, buddy. The lesson was simple. Prejudice isn't just morally wrong, it's economically stupid. Wasting talent because of skin color is wasting profits, innovation, and growth. Hartwell tried to appeal the sentence 3 times. He lost them all. Peterson became a night security guard in a parking lot, an irony that did not go unnoticed by anyone. Marcus stared out the window of his office, where the photo of Isaiah in the snow remained framed. 6 months ago, a boy knocked on his gate. Today, that boy had rewritten the rules of the American corporate game. The best revenge, Marcus said to himself, is to prove them wrong about who deserves opportunities. If this story of transformation and social justice touched your heart, subscribe to the channel for more narratives that prove that sometimes one courageous child can change the whole world, and that true leadership means listening to the voices others prefer to ignore.